Hello, and thanks for watching today on Cedar Creek Porch Time. I hope you're having a wonderful day, a wonderful week. This is my weekly update video that I give. It's too nasty to be outside, so I'm inside here doing a little video here. Saturday we had strange weather here in Oklahoma. It's having a little slow time getting warmed up. Now this next week's supposed to be much better, but we had snow Saturday, got down to 28 degrees. It just a light snow, a dusting, but on up in the day it warmed up to about 50 degrees, so it's kind of a strange day. We also had a 4.6 earthquake Saturday morning about 7 o'clock, and there's actually several earthquakes, but around here little tremors that got started, I believe they said about 4 o'clock in the morning. This weather's kind of strange, and also this rumblings and shaking. Now they say it's from fracking, but our state, I believe our governor has put a ban on a lot of that stuff. Of course, maybe the damage has already been done, but there is an uptick of earthquakes all over the world. And if you look at the geological stuff, there has been an increase everywhere. You know, Japan, overseas, South America, and the United States, there's a big uptick of frequencies of earthquakes. And this weather pattern seems to be a little bit strange. Now, some are referring to solar minimums and stuff like that they're afraid of. One man that goes to our church just not long ago was saying he's following something that this part of Oklahoma and through here was going to become a desert. And then now we're some saying it's going to become more frigid. I don't following all that, and I'm not a big conspiracy getting on every bandwagon. And I believe until the end of time that the seasons will be spring, fall, summer, winter, like it's always been. But there are some changes, it seems like. And used to, when I was younger, when I was a boy growing up here, the weather got colder and lasted longer. In the past 20 years, it keeps getting warmer and warmer. And when it used to get really cold, we'd kill a deer in Thanksgiving week, and we'd hang that deer up, and you could leave a deer hang up in your barn all week long. The deer season would start on a Saturday, and we'd kill a deer and then go back and hunt the rest of the week. And whenever whoever would kill a deer, we'd just put them up in the barn. And at the end of that week, my grandpa was very good at cleaning deer, and he deboned a deer. I don't know if you've ever heard of doing that, but you actually hang them by the head. Is an Indian way of doing it here. You know, most hang them by their hind legs, and they'll put a stick and between the legs and hang them up in the air. Well, around here, an Indian way is to hang them by the neck, and you start skinning around the neck, and the hair naturally goes down with the body, and they will skin that, and they get very little hair on the deer body. If you haven't ever done that, try it. Then you can quarter the deer, take your legs and your hams and stuff off, and then you can take your back strap off, and then you can debone the deer. Some of the Indians around here don't even gut the deer. They cut its throat and let it bleed out, and then they'll debone that deer, and all that's left, the rib cage and stuff, and the guts are up inside that, and it's just boneless meat. When they get through, most that I know go ahead and gut the deer out, but it's not that you have to do it. Now, if you're going to let one hang like we used to do, you would gut the deer and leave the skin on the deer until you got ready to butcher it, and you'd let it hang open, and a lot of times they'd be froze. It was so cold during Thanksgiving week. Now, it's so warm sometimes during Thanksgiving. We've even had snows during Thanksgiving week used to, and now it's so warm. Usually on Thanksgiving Day, you can go around in short sleeves. You know, it's very strange, this weather that we're having. It seems like it is getting warmer. I'm not into this global warming stuff, other than it is warming up. That's pretty evident that it has been. Now it seems like we're cooling back down. So what is going on with the weather? I've heard other YouTube folks, especially giving their opinions on what they think's going on, and some have really studied into it and seem to be following the goings on. But I just think if there's ever a time for a homesteader to be paying attention to what's going on, today is the day. And maybe this summer's a time to put a few more cans of green beans back, whatever, a few more pintos back, extra can of coffee or two, whatever, and get ready for a more bad winter we could have this year. It's just strange. But anyway, we're anxious to get out into the garden, and our garden stuff that we do have, our onions and our garlic and our carrots, are looking very good. But I'm excited to get out, and this week I'm going to get started. Used to, all years prior, I have always been pretty safe on Good Friday, but it seems like Easter come early this year. Good Friday was early. But used to, after Good Friday, you were pretty safe, especially like planting seeds and stuff. And we might have been still yet this year with seeds and things, but I have actually put out plants on Good Friday before and had them survive, tomatoes and peppers and stuff. We did have a real strange thing happen about 2005 or 6, somewhere through there. We were living in Arkansas, up in the hills of Arkansas, and we had somewhat of a homestead, little farm, and it got really pretty early. And an old timer there had told me that when the oak leaves are the size of a squirrel's ear, it was safe to plant everything. And so we had the oak leaves come out kind of early, it seemed like, but because of that saying, we planted, and I had tomatoes out, peppers out, everything. And that year it turned off cold. I mean, like a major cold front come in and stayed for a few days, and everything I had planted, all of my tomatoes, everything died. We had to totally start the year over. All the leaves by that time had gotten pretty good size. The oak leaves, they fell off just like it had become fall again. And then I had called here in Oklahoma, where my folks were living, where I was raised, and asked them, and the same thing had happened here. Not quite as severe, but pretty much, and said it looked like fall again, or winter. The leaves had fell off and changed colors again. It was kind of a strange deal. At least they turned brown and fell off. So anyway, everything greened back up, and it was fine. So right now, this little cold snap we had Saturday down to 28, it doesn't look like it's hurt the trees. Now, it may have hurt the fruit trees. I hope not. Our peaches and plums and pear and everything. And I believe we've even got some apple blooms were on. I'm not sure about that now, but I thought I seen some of the apple trees blooming. But everything was blooming, has been, and going. So I hope we're not going to lose our crop here. But it's kind of a strange year. And I guess if I had anything to say, are you prepared? Are you doing what you can? First off, more than anything, is being prepared with the Lord. I don't want to ever take the Lord out of the equation. It takes Him first. I cannot be a homesteader without God. I've got to have Him in my life. You'll notice some of our other videos, me and my wife are into ministry, and we are spreading the gospel, and we are into that big time. And I share some videos on my YouTube channel, and all I can say to that, if you're not into God, into Jesus, why, you don't have to watch those videos, or you can totally tune us out. But I can't homestead without the Lord. It takes Him first. But the Lord laid upon my heart several years ago to get out of debt. We owed a lot of money. We worked on that. I would like to say I'm totally out of a debt, but I had a debt that I had neglected and never did pay from many, many years ago. And I got out of debt, and now I've gone back and I'm paying that debt. And I'm looking to have that paid off, and we'll be totally debt-free pretty soon. But I felt the Lord telling me to prepare. And it was a strange thing. I was praying at church, and I began to feel this out working. It's before I found YouTube, before I knew anything about YouTube, before I knew anything about Facebook, any of this prepper stuff, any homesteading stuff, anything like that. Before any of that, I felt led to it. But any kind of Christian friends that I mentioned that I was into homesteading, or, because I was already raising a garden and doing things, but I felt led that we should start putting more produce up and learning some of the skills that our grandparents had, picking those back up and getting started and learning how to operate kind of like off-grid if you had to. Boy, if you mentioned that to anybody, to my fellow Christians, it's like, you don't have no faith, you have no faith. But I have faith in the Lord for sure. And I can't do any of it without the Lord. But I felt the Lord tell me, and the only thing I can think of Scripture-wise is Joseph. The Lord showed him that vision, and it saved his people because he obeyed the Lord and listened to that vision and told Pharaoh the interpretation of his dream, and they laid up food in stores, and then when the famine come, they were prepared. Noah, he prepared the ark. Many years Noah worked upon that ark and worked and prepared. He had to put stuff in there, supplies for the animals to live on. I trust the Lord, but when He tells me to do something, I'm going to do it. So I've been working at this, trying to be prepared. Now, can I say, I've seen some of these shows like Doomsday Preppers, and people getting down in a missile silo, and that's great. If you got one and you can afford that, and you're down in, I don't think that I've not felt led to do that, but I have felt led to be prepared, and so we're working on that. But I just wonder with this crazy weather if this might be a year to really pray and say, Lord, help me that I can, have a good garden and put a little bit more back than normal. And maybe it's going to be one of these type deals. We're even concerned about the financial. It looks like we might be into a trade war, and some of the cheap China junk we might not be able to get anymore, and or maybe it's going to get high, or maybe our economy here could suffer for a while. Some of our farmers are concerned, and now I'll just tell you this: I'm giving President Trump the benefit of the doubt. I think we have let China go way too long with this trade deficit that we have with them, and the things that the little tricks that they pull and do. So I feel like, hey, something needs to be done. And sometimes if you're going to change something, there's pain in change. And I worked for a big company, and they'd come through with changes, and boy, I hated it. And I remember one time they come through with computers, and they said, we're going to start, and everybody's going to have their own little laptop computer, and that's how you'll get paid off of that computer. Your hours, your work, everything will be done on a computer instead of doing it on paper. Well, I was kind of liked computers and was kind of a little bit interested in computers, but anyway, I said, well, hey, that'd be neat. But some of the older guys than me, they had a fit about it. So it went by about 6 months, maybe a year, and we were on computers. Everything was going fine. And several meetings at first, this one man, his name was Jerry, and he would say, hey, I hate this computer. Would you let me go back into paper? And if you would, I'd be more productive. I could get more done on paper than I am computer. Well, about 6 months to a year went by, and we'd been on computer, and his computer crashed, and he had to go on paper. And so everything had to be wrote out on paper. And so we were in a meeting one day, and Jerry griped about that because he had to go on paper for like a couple of days. And the boss said, Jerry, it wasn't but a year ago you were complaining that we were going on computers. And he said, well, after I got on it and got to liking it, you kind of, get into that and you like it. Well, we get kind of used to things and this modern technology and stuff, but what if it was all gone? Could you survive if you didn't have YouTube? But way back before YouTube, way back before Facebook, Twitter, all this stuff, I felt led to get into the homestead. We bought Foxfire books at Silver Dollar City up in Branson. We'd went up there on a trip and just different things. We began to accumulate things that would be helpful and begin to do some of the old-time ways. And then I ran across that scripture that says, where I believe it's in Jeremiah, where he says, return into the old ways, seek out the old paths and walk therein. And I thought, that's good advice. And there's nothing wrong with it. In fact, I'm going to tell you something, I'm enjoying this. I don't know about you, but it's more work. But work is healthy for you, by the way. We have a society that likes to sit on their blessed assurance anymore and not do anything. And I'm glad. I enjoy getting out working. I enjoy getting my hands dirty. Yeah, there's dirt gets under my fingernails. So what? I clean that out. I ain't worried about all that. My clothes get dirty, but I am enjoying it. And I feel a peace that I can't explain to you. But when I get in the garden, and sometimes I start worshiping the Lord out in the garden. I feel the Lord, His presence out in my garden space, and it's just wonderful what God's doing. But I'm just trusting in Him. But I have people that'll get after me and say, well, you know, there's putting a spirit of fear and all this. I'm not fearful. Are you? I mean, I got the Lord on my side. And I'm sure not fearful about food stuff. I got a whole pantry full of green beans and black-eyed peas and pintos and whatever, and jellies and jams and stuff. And I'm just at peace with God. And if I didn't have all those things put back, I'd still be at peace with God. But I'm just doing what God says. And I know there's a big bunch of folks. I mentioned this several times lately. There are a lot of folks into this faith-based homesteading. What I think the best term to call it is faith-based homesteading. And most of the homesteaders that I watch on YouTube and that I am subscribed to are faith people, that they believe in the Lord. Now, I'm going to tell you, in religion, there's so many different flavors. And I don't expect, I have friends of all different faiths. I appreciate if you're of a different faith. I'm what you call full gospel, Pentecostal type. I'm not ashamed of that. That's what I am. I was raised Baptist, not ashamed of that. And I got lots of friends of Baptists, Seventh-day Adventists, even got some Mormon, or I call them Mormons, Latter-day Saint folks around here that I really like. They're good people. My main thing is I believe you got to believe in Jesus to go to heaven. If you've accepted Jesus as your Lord and Savior, He writes your name down in the Lamb's Book of Life and you're going to go to heaven. So that's my thing. But I can't help but share my faith on YouTube and on Facebook and on Twitter. So we're mixing in some things here. If you don't like us, you sure don't have to listen to us. But I am concerned about some of the financial things. As I said earlier, Trump doing some of these trade wars and different things, we could be affected financially. I think it would be temporary and we would be better off. And the things that Trump's initiating seems to be great. I'm not promoting Democrat or Republican. I'm just saying the ideas and things that he's doing are things from a common sense perspective of my own. But to fix things, you have to, it's not always easy. You've got to get out and work. And it seems like this work that Trump's doing is going to be tough. And I'd say have patience a little bit and let's see what happens. I don't remember anyone else getting after China in my lifetime like Trump's doing right now. And it could cause China to work better with us and for them to be more patient. I mean, there have been barges, loads of soybeans and corn and wheat that have gone to China that they agreed to buy, and then they turn it around and send it back here for some little excuse, whatever. They are hard to deal with. We ought to be a little bit hard to deal with. Now the rich, the multi-rich, are the ones, the big investors that are making money off foreign trade. The little farmer here, I don't think foreign trade's affecting you as much as you think it is. It does some, but big companies like Tyson Chicken, Cargill, different outfits like that are greatly affected by foreign trade. And I want them to do good, just like I hope they want me to do good. I want them to do good. I'm not against big corporations and companies, but what I'm trying to say is they're the ones that are affected a lot more by foreign trade, and they're the ones that seem like put their fingers in telling the little farmers, oh, you're going to go broke, you're going to go broke, where farmers have a tough time already. And if you're a farmer and you grow row crops, we don't do that. We have cattle, but we don't have row crops. But if you're into that type of stuff, it's tough times. It's expensive to plant and to grow the crops and do what needs to be done. If you're a gardener, it costs a little money to put out a garden, so you're expecting a good return. So I am concerned financially that people that are out there real deep in debt and are upside down with things might have some rough times coming up. And maybe this is a time to start getting out of debt if you are in debt. And if you're wanting to homestead, don't go into big time debt. Anything you want to do, you can sit back and think about for a little bit and do it without having to cost a lot of money. Now, I believe in doing things good and well starting off. So if you're going to build a chicken house, for instance, build a nice one. Build one that's going to last the rest of your life. Buy treated lumber, buy metal, if you can afford it. But if you can't afford it, then maybe you have to start your first chicken house out by used lumber and used metal. And sometimes people build them out of used metal and lumber, and they last years. My grandpa built a house out of an old house. And that house stood for his family. He raised them in that home, believe it or not, for many years, a whole 12, 13 kids. Then the house stood even after his death a number of years, and my dad let some guys tear that house down, and it had a sheet iron roof, what we call it around here, and they used that to build on another building that they were working on. So, you know, it's okay, but you can build something out of used stuff and build it to last. But I want to build things that's going to hold up. And sometimes if you can afford the stuff, build it to last. You don't have to build everything second-handed, but if you don't have the money, don't go into debt and strap yourself. I was just reading, I think it was in Grit magazine, where someone wanted to get into farmers markets, and they went in debt like $10,000 to get in the farmers market. And I was like, they stressed over it, the way it words in there. Maybe you've read the article, and things worked out, but I was like, why put yourself into that kind of for farmers markets? You can start much cheaper and with little stress. Just start out small and then work your way up, baby steps, and you'll be just fine. And you won't owe a whole lot of people. And if it all comes crashing down or it doesn't work, you're still okay and you've still got it made. So I just want to encourage you today, if you're out there homesteading, prepping stuff. You know, the prepping movement was real big. And I know some folks that were big time into prepping. A lot of folks got into it the year 2000. They thought the computers was all going to crash and all that stuff. Well, now we're 18 years later, and none of that happened. But a lot stayed in prepping. And then when Obama was president, a lot of fears began to. I'm going to tell you, a lot of folks now think it's okay. And the Bible warns us, peace. When they say peace, peace, then sudden destruction. I'm all for President Trump and a lot of things he's doing. I don't like some of his tweets and some of that stuff I think he could lay off of, but the stuff he's doing, the policies and stuff, sending our National Guard down to the border and wanting to strengthen our border and some of those things, I'm all for that. I believe it's good common sense ideas, but I've not let my guard down just because Donald Trump is president and because of his policies. I'm telling you, we are just a heartbeat away from nuclear war. We're a heartbeat away from tornadoes, hurricanes. We've seen last year all the hurricanes and devastation that happened from those, from the tornadoes. Here in Oklahoma, we have a lot of tornadoes. Now we had a late snow, late freeze. It's just, you know, there's so many things. Financial collapse around here would devastate our community. So many people that I know, friends of mine, that have gone into deep, deep debt and bought new homes, bigger homes, newer vehicles, all kinds of things that they didn't have to have, but they went into, and they would lose those if they got into bad, and some have because they've gotten into bad financial hardships. So what I want to say is just be careful out there, and maybe if you haven't been focusing your attention on what's important, start today, focusing today on what's important. And maybe say a little prayer and say, Lord, I hope you're already doing that, but most importantly, pray every day. Lord, help us, Lord. Guide our direction, Lord, what we need to be doing. If we need to be putting back food, you can call it prepping, homesteading, whatever. I don't care what term you put on. The reason I don't want to be called a prepper is because they've been given a bad slate. And some of those people they had on TV were nut jobs. I'm sorry if you're one of them listening and you were one of those goofy ones. Some of that stuff I can't believe. But anyway, that's not what a true prepper is. But a homesteaders are people that made the best of their home on what they had, and they prepared for winter. They prepared for bad times, had very little money. You don't have to have a lot of money to be a homesteader. Start out small, work at it, and you'll get there. I appreciate you tuning in this week for Porch Time here and with Cedar Creek Homestead. And I hope you've gotten something out of this today. And I want to encourage you, and just keep on there. And God bless you. We'll see you next week.